Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. With the Brave Women at Work podcast, you'll get the resources and tips along with real-world stories and humor to empower and inspire you to take bolder and braver actions in your career and life. Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pastikas. I'm so glad you're here. Well, hey everyone, how are you doing out there? So when I was growing up in my career, I received my first management position because, let's face it, I was a hard worker like so many of you, kept my head down, worked really hard. I drove results as an individual contributor, and they looked at me and go, yep, you're going to be a manager. So as I've risen through the corporate ranks over close to 25 years, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but hey, you know what? Let's be proud of the time I've been in corporate. No one has told me that leadership is and was and is, continues to be an inside job. I learned that through the school of hard knocks, and it's one of the many reasons that I do this podcast. I suffered, as if you read in any of my books or listen to the podcast, I've suffered from many bouts of imposter syndrome. I've had some tough conversations, received some tough feedback, and the list goes on. So, can you feel me? Many of us that listen to this show, we didn't know. We didn't know it was an inside job until it became an inside job. So that is why I wanted to talk about this very topic with my guest today, Dana Maor. Dana knows firsthand the importance of looking within to determine and harness our strengths, our leadership style, and more to be the best leader we can be for ourselves and for our teams. So during my conversation with Dana, we chatted about the importance of looking within as a leader, the story behind her latest book, or her book called The Journey of Leadership: How CEOs Learn to Lead from the Inside Out. I did also ask Dana during the conversation, because the book has the CEO title in it, can all of us use this? And the answer is a resounding yes. So if you're saying, well, I'm not a CEO, just hang on, listen in, because what you're going to hear is universal, no matter where you are in the leadership spectrum. How do we assess our personal leadership approach and style? What is our personal mandate? What is a personal commitment plan, and why is it important? Why is failure also a critical part of leadership, which is tough for us folks that are gold star chasers or perfectionists? Failure is often kind of shunned. And she's like, no, it's really good feedback is on our journey to leadership. And like I said, I am confident you will find a nugget of wisdom in my conversation with Dana. So here is more about Dana before we get started. Dana Maor is a senior partner at McKinsey & Company, the global co-head and European leader of McKinsey's People and Organizational Performance Practice, and a member of the McKinsey Knowledge Council. Whether working in aerospace, financial services, pharmaceuticals, or telecommunications, Dana has helped clients pursue successful large-scale operational and organizational transformations and successful M&A integration. So that's merger and acquisition integrations. Passionate about talent and leadership, Dana has guided many organizational platforms for top executives and has helped architect capability building programs to reskill employees for changing workforce needs. Dana took a major role in McKinsey's research to build an effective understanding of talent management for the 2018 book, Talent Wins. She is now a co-author for the 2024 best-selling book, The Journey of Leadership. If Brave Women at Work has made an impact on you, please be sure to share it with a family member, a friend, or a colleague. And you know that the ratings and reviews that you leave help the show continue to gain traction and grow. So if it's making an impact on you, take 5 minutes, leave a rating and review. It would mean the world to me. It helps me keep motivated and giving you the best content that I can find, and good guests as well. If you've already left a rating and review, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. If If you haven't yet downloaded my freebies from my website, check them out at bravewomenatwork.com. I've created 3 freebies just for you: 24 career and leadership affirmations, 5 ways to managing your imposter syndrome, and getting paid, 10 negotiation tips. So, again, they're completely free, so you can check them out at my website, bravewomenatwork.com. One last thing that I wanted to mention is that I run something called the Brave Circle. And the Brave Circle is a very low entry point to coaching. If you've never had a coach or if you don't know if coaching is right for you, it's a really low entry point. It is a monthly circle of women. I love these women. And I can see how much they've made a difference in one another's lives. It's a safe place for women in the professional, and we've even gone into personal realms on a monthly basis. We have one meeting per month. And what happens is you sign up, you share, you're part of that circle, completely confidential. And we share, and we give each other counsel. And then I do coaching throughout the 1 hour session. So it's a low commitment. It is a monthly membership. And then on top of that, what you get is a semi-annual planning session so that you're reaching your professional and your personal goals. And then I also have, yes, I have another podcast. It's called The Brave Circle, completely private to that group. And I customize the content for them. And so you would get a password to a private podcast so that you could be listening to yours truly give kind of wisdom and nuggets based on topics that are curated specifically for the group. So you can check out the Brave Circle to see if it's right for you. Again, at my website at bravewomenatwork.com. Okay, let's welcome Dana to the show. Well, hello, Dana. Welcome to Brave Women at Work. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course, of course. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and your background and how you've gotten to where you are?
Happy to. I think if you would have told me 20, 30 years ago that I will be here talking to you about leadership and the book that we put out last year, I would have probably told you that that's never going to happen. So how did I get here? I think that throughout the course of life, there were probably 2 or 3 guiding principles that I followed. The first one was that I always wanted to learn, and I continue to want to learn something new. I always paid attention to the choice of people that I work with and try to be in an environment that is all about growth and mutual accountability. And I think that this is actually how I got to where I am right now. But in a nutshell, I actually studied computer science in my undergrad. I then went to MIT to do my
Wow.
MBA, wanting to continue to stay very close to technology. And only then I learned about consulting. I never knew what consulting was. And I thought, isn't that a perfect profession for somebody who has no clue what they want to do when they grow up? I joined McKinsey because it was all about the learning and exceptional people and learning new things every day. And for the first 10 years, all that I did was around technology, telecom, media, only to realize 10 years in that we can come up with beautiful strategies, but unless we pause to think about people and organizations and how they work and how do we bring it all together to deliver on those strategies, nothing is going to happen. And that was a major shift in my areas of focus in the firm. I continue to do work in the technology industry, but also in pharmaceuticals, financial services, etc. But the following half of my time at McKinsey was always focused on transformations, talent, operating models, and people. And that's how I ended up leading McKinsey's people and organizational performance practice with someone else globally and in Europe. And that is where I am today.
Oh, that is so exciting. So tell us about, because you said, hey, if you would have asked me a year ago, I'd be talking to you a book on leadership. I would be like, there's no way that's happening. So what is the backstory behind the book, right? Because you didn't need to do this. You and your co-authors didn't need to do this. So what prompted you to write the book?
Well, I think we all spend a lot of time with people and trying to think about what is it that make people the most effective in what they do. And throughout the years, the more I spend time with clients, leaders, people in their organizations, we realize that it is not what you do, but it is who you are as a leader. And when we all came together and I had the opportunity to learn again, do something new, write a book, and bring to the world, what we have learned from tens, if not hundreds of stories from the Bauer Forum, from work that we are doing with leaders, work that we are doing with clients, and share that there is a way to pause and reflect and think about who you want to be, not only what you want to do. We
Mm,
realize that this is very important, particularly if you look around us, right? The world, every year we think it's not going to get any crazier, and it gets crazier. There
hmm.
was COVID, and we thought that is the end of it. And then we came out of COVID, and we were debating hybrid, working from home, working from the office, and we thought that's the end of it. And then war started, and geopolitical changes, and technology is continuing to accelerate in how it's changing the way that we work. And all that shows that just knowing something or knowing how to do it is not enough. And therefore, it's all anchored in how do you develop this capacity in yourself to continuously learn, to continuously grow, to continuously develop. And that's what we're trying to help leaders reflect on with this book.
So, just so we'll mention it a couple times. So, the book's title, which I love, is The Journey of Leadership: How CEOs Learn to Lead from the Inside Out, which is exactly what you're talking about. It's not about just saying, I want to be a CEO or I want to be a leader. It's like, how do you lead yourself from the inside out so that you are powerful with your people? So, why do you think, let's start from like kind of the bottom floor, why do you think it's important for us to look within? Because when I started my career, Dana, I suspect probably when you started yours, maybe way back when, not always, that wasn't always the case, right? So we promoted people that were great individual, producers, and they're like, "You're great, you're a great producer. We're going to make you a leader," but they didn't ever look within, and they just were more, I would say, managers versus leaders. So why is it important for us to look within?
And by the way, what you're describing is true everywhere, right? In technology, where a great developer ended up leading a team or managing a team. So that's true everywhere we look around. And the reality is that the more the world is changing, the faster that it's changing. Now with technology and Gen AI, we have done some surveys that showed very clearly that um, individuals are now very comfortable to learn their profession from technology, because that is a very clear and given set of instructions. And what really matters and what makes a difference to what keeps us as individuals in organizations, to what engages us, to what pushes us to be at our best, is actually the leader that we're working with. Are we being developed? Are we constantly challenged? Are we being rewarded when we're doing something terrific? Not only in compensation, financial compensation, but also in new opportunities or new challenges. And so it is very difficult to be able to navigate all those competing demands, short-term goals, long-term goals, listen to others, but be confident, deliver, but also be empathetic to people without having the anchor that is your inner compass, without understanding what is it that may be inhibiting you, without understanding how to conquer those barriers or constraints that you sometimes pose on yourself, and how to manage those contradictions that are consistently in everything that we do. And so we always ask leaders to first think about what is it in themselves, what is their own why, what is it that they want to achieve, what gives them motivation, what are their triggers, when are they not at their best, and then
Mm.
to think about how that translates to others and how that translates to systems. And this is why it is so important to first understand yourself so that you're able to understand others and then inspire many.
So with that, I have to say, it's not that I haven't had good mentors and sponsors in my career, but Dana, I will say I was in a philosophy class when I was an undergrad, and I've always been a curious learner. Just I think like you, I suspect that you're a curious person. So that's what makes us go, well, what about that? How does that work? Like let's look under that subject area. And I'll never forget, it was the most highest compliment, even though it was just a one liner. And he said, curiosity cannot be taught. He wrote that on my paper. And so that really curiosity is what led me to do so much leadership internal homework. But I have, as an American, as a leader in America, I have never, I don't know, and that's maybe what the Bauer Forum, so I'd love to know what it is. But I've never been say, hey, you need to go to like leadership training, or we're going to invest in you to look from within. So I don't know. Is that what prompts us to be good leaders, is our own curiosity? Because there aren't many formal programs for us to say, like, hey, go look within or go do this to be a better leader.
Yes, I think that the good news is that nowadays more people are more curious about themselves as individuals and how they lead. I can tell you that the teenagers in my family, which I've never expected, are all asking for the book. They
Oh,
all want to
wow.
read what that's about, or they're already in their first years in the workforce in the technology company. They're saying they're really bad managers. Well, what can we tell them? How do we teach them how to be better? How do we so I think that there's more consciousness with reflections on well-being, there's more awareness and consciousness and desire. But I completely agree with you that it's not necessarily the case, and some people may never ask the question. What I found most interesting is that many leaders have gone all the way up to CEO, thinking that we've reached the peak and we're done now, only to find out that this is their new chapter, and they're now learning even more. And it's when you reach that point of your personal limitations that you really start asking the questions. One of the stories in the book is of a Swiss Life insurance company CEO who grew from being the CFO in the company, knew exactly what they're doing, intended to continue to manage the company in the same way, only to find that days after he assumed the CEO role, the financial markets just turned around completely. And everything that he learned and everything that he knew how to do was no longer relevant. So he had to ask questions and he had to learn from the start. And what he did, his first thing was to go to a mentor of his who actually told him, well, first of all, you should ask yourself, what is the purpose of all of this? And what is the long-term vision? And why are you doing what you're doing? And at the beginning, he thought this is completely insane. I mean, the company is now facing real immediate risks, and I should be thinking about purpose and long-term vision, only to realize that that was the right question to ask, and that framed everything in a very different way. And that is the beginning of his own journey. And there's different phases in that and things that he discovered about himself. But the point is, if either you're curious, like you, an individual that is looking to learn, or you're lucky enough, like me, to have stumbled upon one of these opportunities to go on a leadership training program. And at that point, I felt like I only scratched the face of the surface. And I asked the leaders of that program, and then they sent me to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And suddenly I found myself spending more time on that. Or you're reaching some limit and you realize you need something different, or you're seeing someone doing amazingly well and you're saying, well, what is that? What is happening there? What is it that they're doing that I'm not doing that I should be doing? And hopefully with that and through that, more and more people are exposed to that. The Bauer Forum, to your question, is a very intimate program that we run at McKinsey. We convene 4 or 5 CEOs at a time with people who work very closely with them. And for 2 days, reflect on their vision, their mission, some challenges that they have, and they give advice to one another. And a lot of the components in the book they go through in this program. But we follow the same principles of lead self, lead others, lead organizations, also when we work on transformations, also when we work with organizations on their own leadership capacity. And so it's the same methodology that we apply in all of these situations.
Oh, cool. So you actually take the book and like put it in action in the Bauer Forum. So that's so neat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Or to say differently, what we do in the Bauer Forum, we ended up
Oh,
codifying.
okay. The reverse.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
The opposite. So how do we start, right? So how do we assess that our personal leadership approach and style? And I love this word because it qualifies it objectively, right? Because when we're looking within, we're looking at ourselves and we can be completely distorted in our thinking. So how do we go about it in an objective manner?
Well, look, there's many ways and assessments that are very popular out there. But I think the most important thing is to have your advisory board or a listening tour with people that you trust from different parts of life. So we actually encourage leaders to not only talk to people who work with them, but also to friends and family and people that know them for many years, to develop that perspective and understand how they're doing. And there's different dimensions that we describe in the book along the lines of the polarities that we talk about. Do you choose professionalism or authenticity? Typically, right? What is your immediate reaction? Do you choose to listen or to speak? Are you humble or are you more confident? So there's a list of traits that we talk about, and it's not that you need only one. You always need to balance the two. But through this diagnostic, you can ask yourself, you can ask others, you can do it in the Bauer Forum program, but you get a sense as to what is your natural inclination, what is your default mode, and what are those other components that you want to develop. And that can be a start of thinking through what are those traits that you want to flex more, bring more, or consciously play with as you develop your own leadership plan.
So a couple questions that come up. I want to kind of normalize this because women that are listening, they're of all levels of their career, right? So I've got CEOs, I've got founders that'll listen to this. I have individual contributors that'll listen to this. And I have always said, and I just want to hear it from you so that we're like hitting it home, is that I believe you can use what's in this book no matter what level you're in. You don't have to be a CEO. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. There's a reason we said that this is about leadership. Yes, we learn from CEOs because they have traveled the journey of leadership to a certain point and then continue to learn. They realize that that was not the end of it. But the things that we talk about apply at any level, at any kind of organization, non-for-profit, public company, private company, family-owned company, any leader or social sector, third sector, any leader that you are, you can ask yourself these questions.
And then the other thing that popped up, so you talked about, what you use in the Bauer Forum, and you have your own kind of scale where you say, oh, is it this or this? So I'm assuming you answer that intuitively, right? To say, or who that person, if you're doing it yourself, you do it intuitively. Like, so everybody don't overthink this. You say, do I lean more confident? Do I lean more this way? Do I lean, whatever I lean. Can it change, right? So do you tell people, if you start on one end and then you start doing a lot of introspection and looking, should you look again, like in a year or two, to see how you may be flexing in certain areas differently than you were before?
It changes all the time, and it changes also depending on the context and the circumstances. In some situations, people around you and organizations or groups of people, what they need is for you to tell them what to do. Sometimes that's what they need. And sometimes what they need is for a leader that can, one of the best CEOs that I worked with was amazing at listening to multiple opinions, but then making a decision that is informed by, that does not necessarily obviate any of these opinions, but it is a very clear decision that is taken based on that. So um, it's not only changing over the course of time, it can also change based on the situation that you're in. You may be in a group of everybody speaks all the time, and by nature, you're relatively more of an introvert. You probably need to push yourself to bring yourself forward more.
Hmm.
But you may be in a very different group where most people are not talking, and then your role is very different as a leader. So it's not only changing over time, it's also changing in the context and the situation that you're in and the leadership that is required in that moment. And this is what we're trying to help leaders reflect on, and what is that leadership that is required of me in this moment in time to bring the most out of myself, the people around me, and the organization, so that we can deliver on what it is that we hope to achieve.
Okay. And then you keyed in on something. I've talked about this on the podcast a couple of times. Let's hit on introversion. So I like what you're saying because there's no formula, everyone. I just want to kind of underscore that. It's not like let's say you look at this book and you're like, okay, I have to hit a certain formula to be a good leader. You have specific ingredients in your own leadership recipe that you shake into it. And you're also in a culture that might be different from the next culture. So it really is going to depend. And like you said, it is variable. So I want, because I've got a lot of folks listening that are perfectionists, like high standards. So I want to make sure that they understand that there's not striving for perfection here. It's like you've got to find your own secret sauce of leadership.
I completely agree. And I would say something even to add to that, and that is it's all about the versatility and the adaptability and the ability to change over time. And so, to your point, there's no one perfect solution that always applies. It really depends on where you are and who you're with and what the situation requires. One of the stories in the book is about a CEO that moved to Japan. So
Mm.
obviously everything that he knew from leading in North America was not necessarily directly applicable in Japan, and he had to relearn how to lead in a very different environment. So that's a very easy and visible transition from a North American culture to a Japanese culture, but we all sense that. It's just moving between different organizations that you would have a different culture and a different way of doing things that every leader would need to adjust to.
Yeah, and even if you're in the same company, but you go from leading one team to a different team, it's a totally different team with different people and they have different problems and different constructs. So that's what it is the Rubik's Cube for me. Leadership is a Rubik's Cube because, like, just when you think you've got it and you're close, you're like, oh.
No,
So for a
exactly.
curious person, it's like really an interesting, game we're playing, right? Or a study. I think it's a study, it's a whole subject area in of itself. So, okay, so you said something, in the book. It's called, how do you have a true mandate as a leader? So, I want to step back and say, what is a true mandate? What does that mean?
it sounds very big and it sounds like something that somebody might have given you. So you come in, you assume a role and you have a mandate. But the reality is that this is what we ask leaders to reflect on and define for themselves. What is it that I'm here to achieve? What is it that I would like to see this organization deliver? And in this context, what is my role as the starting point of, and if this is where I want the organization to be and I want myself to be, what is it that I now need to do to motivate others to get there? And so it's a very open-ended question, but it is an important one. I actually love it that we're having this conversation at the beginning of the new year, because this is a very good time to step back and reflect. Even if you've been in an organization for many, many, many years, it is a great time to think about what is it that I want to achieve? What is my mandate for this year? Who is it that I
Mm.
want to be as a leader in 2025? And how is it going to show up? Being, the curious, the learner, which I know now you are as well, it would be quite disappointing if what we hope that our mandate is and what we expect of ourselves and others in the series the same as it was last year. Hopefully it is about conquering new territories, new spaces, new capabilities, new things, and with that, providing a lot of growth opportunities for others as well.
So good. Okay, so I will be putting a one-liner on social media and I'll put a quote with your name. Like, what is our mandate for the year? Because I think that is a really it's not a question you hear very often. What is my mandate for the year? Now, here's the thing that I'm cautioning myself and hopefully helping other people. So in prior years, and everyone knows that has listened a long time, that I've gone through burnout, and I'm very careful to help women. And now it's part of what I do is to help them prevent burnout when possible. So I will tell you, Dana, I didn't have a mandate for many years. I thought that everything was my mandate. So
Right.
my
I can imagine.
my mandate is everything, and I'm going to help everyone. And so I would just caution you when you all answer this question for yourself is find your mandate and stay true to it and stay in your lane with your mandate. And you said, an advisory board, which is just a fancy word of people that are going to tell you the truth and be objective with you. So, you may think that as an individual contributor like advisory board, I don't even know what that means. Yes, you do. It's your dear friends that are going to be objective, your colleagues are going to be objective, mentors are going to be objective. Everyone has folks that can help them on this journey. And so have those folks help you stay accountable to stay in your lane because you don't need to have everything as your mandate.
I completely agree. And I would say one more thing, and that is, I think that part of the mandate or how to get to achieve this mandate has to be, how do you create time for yourself to reflect, to re-energize, to make sure that you have what it takes to be able to deliver on that? To your point, Jen, many, many people get, if not burnout, then to a worn out situation
Hmm.
where, and you see that the passion is not there, the energy is not there, their ability to think creatively is not there. And the one thing that we say consistently when we talk about this book is taking time for yourself. It's not a privilege, it's not indulgent, it's a must. It's something that you have to do if you want to have the capacity as a leader to excite and inspire others. And so I join your invitation to make sure that everyone is very conscious about the mandate, and make sure that with that you also set your clear boundaries. And everybody has different boundaries and
Hmm.
different ways to re-energize, but that has to be part of the recipe.
Hmm. And one thing I'm thinking about Bill Gates right now, I know that he has, and not everyone has this luxury. I think he takes like a think week or a couple weeks. Like he takes several weeks to think, at least annually by himself. So, what do you tell folks that, and CEOs specifically, or the best CEOs you've worked with, do they carve time where they're like creating white space in their calendar for this reflection?
So everybody has their different tricks. Some people are very good at waking up super early in the morning. I am not, right? Those people that say I wake up at 5 a.m. and then I do my workout and then I do my email. That's not me.
Okay.
But different people do different things. Some people are very early morning people, and what they do is do it in the morning. Some people have a weekly ritual. Some people do what Bill Gates does, which is once every few months they take that week off. Some people carve out time in the middle of a day to make sure that I do that. I block time in the middle of the day to make sure that I have some time to think, to get back on emails, not when it's midnight, to call
Mm.
someone, a spontaneous call if there's an urgent matter that needs to be dealt with. And so different people have their tricks, but they all are very well connected to what is my personal rhythm and how do I need to create that. Some people go to nature, some people read a book, some people listen to music, whatever that might be, I think is has to be very clearly scheduled in your day, week, month, quarter, year.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's no chance of survival in this environment.
Okay. So I think that that's a really good takeaway too, is to find your rhythm and to schedule time. So it doesn't need to look just like the leadership recipe doesn't need to be exactly one way or a perfect way. It's finding your recipe to like create white space so that you can reflect because we become, I mean, and this is a cliched phrase, like that human doings versus human beings. And there's no white space to actually get strategic or look within. And that's what really helps, you're saying, to become a better leader.
No doubt. And I love your human doings instead of human beings.
Yeah. So, okay. So it does dovetail on what we just talked about. But if we've been in leadership, like I've been, I'm thinking back now, I've been in VP or higher for at least 15 years. And I will tell you that there have been times where I feel built, beat up, really, really beat up. And so we've talked about time away, but is there any other purposeful steps that leaders can take to reinvigorate ourselves if we're just feeling burnt out or feeling just the weight of it, like we've been going a long time and we just feel a little worn out?
Yeah, so I think to your point, time away, even if it's 5 minutes, is obviously very, very productive. But I would say time with others, to your point, going back to our fancy advisory board or group of people, to
Hmm.
reflect with other people and maybe get a different perspective and reframe where we're at is sometimes super helpful. Um, Asking yourself why, what, like, am I doing the right thing or am I actually spending all my energy on the wrong things? In many cases, finding something new to learn gives people a lot of new energy. And if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and to your point, just go through the motions to deliver on everything because everything is your mandate and lose track of why you're doing what you're doing and what is really important. How do you prioritize? And sometimes even a very technical exercise of prioritizing what it is that I'm doing or also prioritizing the people that you're interacting with. So one of my favorite exercises is the exercise of your connection network. Draw your connection network on a page. Who are the energy takers? Who are the energy givers?
Mm.
What are the roles that may be missing in your life? Who are some people that might be contributing to your energy that are not there? And how can you establish that connection? Reflecting on that is a very, I find in a lot of our leadership sessions, an exercise that people love the most, actually, because
Hmm.
it gives them a different perspective on delivering for everybody, particularly women, to your point, everybody that needs something from them, as opposed to how do I create a balanced set of relationships and a network that gives and takes in a way that is rewarding.
Okay, so I'll add on to that. So now I'm thinking about my schedule, right? So let's say that I have in my mind, who your energy takers are, who your energy, I don't know, takers and givers are, right? So, who's going to add into the energy jar, who's going to take out of the energy jar or the energy bank. So if you look at your calendar for a week, and let's say, we're recording on a Tuesday. So let's say you go into the office on a Tuesday, you look at your calendar for Wednesday, and every meeting is an energy taker on Wednesday. Maybe you shake that up a little bit. Maybe you say, no, I don't think so. Because remember, most of us have agency of over how we schedule our time. We may have to be in meetings, but most of us can kind of move things around. Or if you're in a day where you have a lot of energy drain, that is when you have to be more purposeful to find joy, to move your body, to, take a minute to think just so that you avoid that feeling beat up.
I completely agree. I had one CEO, I remember discussing this exercise, and she was staring in the ceiling. And we were asking, what's going on? And she said, I am thinking about my week. Everyone, everything that is on my calendar is an energy taker.
Wow.
Uh, and that, just that, and to your point, then going through that and rebalancing. Or saying, you know what, so on that day, I'm going to go out and have lunch with a friend. And I know that it's difficult during a work day. We never do these things, but maybe that's
Hmm.
exactly what you need to be able to sustain through the day. The other thing that I would suggest is that when you notice that your energy is drained, or the opposite, that you've been in an interaction where it's you're full of energy, ask yourself, what was in that interaction? What is in
Mhm.
the situation that is giving me energy or taking that away? Because these are all clues to help you get better and better at managing your energy levels over the course of time.
Well, I'm asking you selfishly because I do word of the year. Not everyone believes in that. Some people don't. But one of my words is energy because I think that it's about energy management. So I will be doing this exercise. So thank you for giving me this tip. Um, Wanted to kind of shift to so we know we have our mandate for the year, but then you also have a term called personal commitment plan. So what is that? What does that mean to you, personal commitment plan?
So the personal commitment plan is a little bit what we do in the Bauer Forum and other leadership programs, where we encourage leaders to really put down on paper a set of commitments and what it is that they're going to do to achieve that. So, for example, if you realize that you're a leader that always listens, and
Mhm.
quite often women listen before they speak more than others, do you want to try different things? Do you want to push yourself in some situation to be raising your hand first? Or if you decide, for example, that the energy exercise is one that you, or the connection exercise is one that you want to do, commit to yourself that once a week you're going to take 30 minutes to reflect on your schedule for the whatever that might be, depending on who is that leader that you want to be, what are those traits that you feel that you're are not necessarily your default traits that you want to spend more time on, in the context of and in the service of what you want to deliver this year as your mandate. What are those commitments that you're making to yourself and in turn to others to be able to deliver on that?
Mm. So it's not really, some people might say, is this a resolution? It's not really. It's not a resolution. It's a commitment to yourself. So I feel it's stronger. What do you think? It's stronger than a resolution.
I am not very good at keeping those New Year resolutions, so I
Me
would hope
either.
you. I think the hard thing is to also keep up those commitments, right? So what we would do with leaders is sometimes I would email you, right, your own commitments to self a month in, 6 months in, or we would create coaching members, right? To tell each other and hold each other accountable on these. Or if you did this for a top team together, we would say, okay, once a quarter, we get together as the top team and we hold each other accountable to our commitments. So it's not only setting
Mm.
these commitments, but it's also holding yourself and others accountable.
So do you also, just going off aside for a minute, so when you work with CEOs individually, but I'm assuming you've also worked with teams as well.
Yes.
So does it work? Does the personal commitment plan work in teams? So everyone does their own commitment plan, and then within the team, we all kind of get together and check in on where we are?
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it really
Okay.
depends on whether that was paying lip service to say, yeah, yeah, let's talk about
Mm.
leadership, let's spend some time together, and then, let's just get on with the year and deliver. Or there are leaders who are very committed to this idea, understanding that this is the secret sauce to be able to resiliently over time and sustainably deliver. And so it really depends on the commitment of the CEO, other leaders around you to this. But some teams are doing extremely well, and it's super helpful to do it together.
If I were to write out my personal commitment plan, it would be, that I have to spend time managing my energy. And I'm going to use this tip to like look at my calendar as like one. What would be one that you would say, I'm putting you on the spot just a little bit, but what would be on your personal commitment plan for this year?
I think for me, it's really reminding myself where to put the boundaries. So it's week one, and I'm already inclined to say yes to some things that I'm not very happy about. And so going
Mm,
back to the why is this, is it important? Why is it important? And if it is important, is this the right way to do it? Is this the right moment to trade off family versus work commitments, whatever that might be? That is the one thing that I'll have to continue to remind myself this year.
okay, I'm with you there. Okay, I got to put that down on my plan. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so here's one that I struggle with, and I suspect a lot of my listeners will too, is the word failure, right? So I do things like, when I started the podcast, interestingly enough, I started it, I don't even know, I think it's been 3 or 4 years. This is weird because I am a recovering perfectionist. That's what I call myself. And I'm typically afraid of failing because of that. And it kind of goes like it's like perfection's cousin. But with the podcast, I didn't care. I was just like, oh, okay, we'll see what happens, and now I've just had such an amazing experience. I keep doing it. It's life-giving to me. It's energy, in the bank of energy it's adding. But there are things that I get terrified, that I'm going to fail. And so what I wanted to ask you is like, what is your concept on failure's place in leadership?
Yeah, so I always go to Nelson Mandela's quote where he says, I never lose. He didn't say fail. I never lose. I either win or learn. And I think this is the state of mind that we all have to keep, because when we only go for those things that we know we will do well in, we don't learn enough, right? We stay in our comfort zone, and unless you venture into the learning zone or the fear zone, there's no way to expand that comfort zone, because only by learning and trying and doing more in that scary zone, we make it our part of our comfort zone. In agile organizations, we always say that, and there's exercises where we show that sometimes it is much better to try quickly and fail and learn from it and move forward. And I am like you, right? I didn't practice yoga for years because I was not the best and the most professional in the room when practicing yoga. And then to your point, I learned that it actually gives me a lot of energy, that I learn a lot from it, that there's something really amusing about something, rolling over in the middle of a headstand or learning how to do it, or the
Hmm.
satisfaction when you finally learn how to do that. And I think that that applies to everything. So I think the reframing around, if you don't fail ever, it means that you're not pushing yourself to learn new things sufficiently, and it's part of the process. And when something doesn't go your way, to say, okay, what is it that I learned about myself through this? What is it that I'm going to do different? How am I going to do that better? And how am I developing a new skill? Assuming that that is one in our mandate, in the things that we want to achieve, in something that is important to us. I wouldn't force ourselves to take
Hmm.
unnecessary risks or fail. But I think that failure as a mode of learning and as evidence that we are trying something new, that we're building a new skill, is a very different mindset around the concept of failure.
So you were talking about yoga. I'll throw an example out. I'm doing something tonight that I'm like, I will tell you, I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm scared, right? I have like the butterflies. And so one of the things that I want to do with my coaching in the future, coaching work with women, is that I want to pair somatics, so body work and meditation for women in corporate, because I don't think we talk about it enough. And I'm I'm an expert in this. I've tried to like muscle through with my mind for everything, and then my body's not on board, and then my body's trailing behind, going, "Nuh-uh, I don't think so." So tonight is my first one-on-one client experience where I am teaching a kriya of Kundalini meditation and somatic.
Wow.
Yes, so I'm a little nervous. I'm going to throw it out there. But you know what? Hey, I'm going to learn and we're all going
You
to
are.
benefit. So super cool.
Yes, I completely agree, and I love it. I think you're absolutely right. I had a somatic coach for a period of time, and I loved it. It
Oh,
was
good.
very
I'm glad. I'm glad.
experience
Yeah.
for me.
So
Yeah,
yeah, like I don't know. I mean, at least in my area, I'm in the Chicagoland area. I've never heard of that. This was a whole new, and we'll do all other conversations on somatics, but just so everyone understands, somatics is, in and of the body, right? So we're talking about the body keeps the score. There's a famous book about that, and integrating the body and the mind, right? We're talking a lot about heady mental stuff today, but I'm just giving an example of something that is new and I could fail at, but I also can learn at, which is really exciting.
I love it. Well,
Thank
good
you.
luck tonight. I'm curious to
Thank
hear
you.
how that ends up.
Thank you. Okay, so what are 1 to 2 ways that you believe women can be braver at work today?
I think, well, first and foremost, everything that we just talked about, right? Drawing your own boundaries, being clear about what you want, raising your hand and taking what you want. I think that that is very, very important. And defining new things to learn. I really think that, and maybe I'm biased, but learning and curiosity are the best ways to keep the energy high and be excited about what we do. And daring to do that is terrific. And if we're in a workplace that does not allow us to do this, then probably we're not in the right place to begin with. And so
Mm,
I would encourage everybody to think about, what is it that I'm hoping to give, of course, to my workplace, but also to get from my workplace or from any environment that I'm operating in, and dare to claim it. That would be my
mm. Ooh, I like that. Dare to claim it. The other thing that's coming up that I'll add into, our conversation is go for the butterflies, right? So I have butterflies in my stomach and, kind of nervous excitement. And we often get in ruts where we are doing the same things day in after day out. And I think there's true comfort in that. But if you go for the butterflies, isn't life just so much more interesting? And as a result, as you stretch, right? You like, if you think of yourself stretching, you stretch yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and as a leader.
And one of the things that Bob Keegan speaks about is those micro experiments, because we know, right? One of the reasons we don't try these things is because in some shape or form, they threaten something that is near and dear to us, our identity, a value that we really care about. And I think that designing, and maybe that's part of the commitment plan, those micro experiments where you try to play around with the butterfly in the butterfly zone
Mm-hmm.
in a relatively low risk environment where you're not going to risk everything is a very safe way to try new things without really sending yourself to the deep end.
I like that micro experiment, everyone. So, the book I want to repeat. So, it's The Journey of Leadership: How CEOs Learn to Lead from the Inside Out. And I believe you can get that book wherever books are sold, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll
Amazon.
definitely check that out. Yes, I already saw it on Amazon. I'm sure it's everywhere, you can find books. So, how can women find you and McKinsey? I know that it's a famous company and consultancy, but your work online.
LinkedIn is probably the easiest.
So, Dana, thank you so much for being on the show today, for I think just reinvigorating me this morning. For me, morning, for you, a little bit of the afternoon, right? But for reinvigorating me and challenging me to go for the butterflies, challenging me for doing the micro experiment. So, thank you so much for being here and for the work that you do.
Thank you so much. And thank you for reminding me, first days of the year, to do the same myself.
Well, that's a wrap on my discussion with Dana today. I hope you found our conversation valuable and inspiring. As a reminder, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The show is also available on any other podcast platform you enjoy. Until next time, show up, lead from the inside out, and be brave.